Last Sunday, when the museum opened its doors to the general public, one of the first visitors was a small 10-year-old girl from Mission Hills. She was Latina, of Mexican heritage, I believe, and her 5th grade teacher had been talking about the Holocaust about a month ago, and she spoke to her mother about it and said she would like to learn more. Her mother went on the internet to try to find a place where she could learn, where her daughter could learn more about the Holocaust, and she found our website and discovered that our museum was not yet open. Well, she decided to wait a month and bring her daughter to this museum, which is free to the public, and they were among the very first to enter our doors last Sunday. If you had seen this little girl, pad of paper and pen in hand, walking through our museum, taking notes, studying the exhibits, you would understand and you would know the answer to the question, why do we teach about the Holocaust? May there be many, many more boys and girls just like her. Thank you. I'll do the introduction. You've gotten through my thank you speech. We now have really one of the great speakers and a man who has really been a stalwart supporter of the monument and the museum for over 15 years, our great mayor, Antonio Villaraigosa.
Listening to the Shalhevet High School choir, I couldn't help but feel, even though I don't read or write or understand Hebrew, I couldn't help but feel the story in that song. And it's important that we begin with a song. Today we commemorate a museum, but we do more than that. We answer the question of why. Why do we continue to tell the story of the 6 million Jews that were killed during the Holocaust? Why do we continue to come together, Jew and Gentile, to remember? The answer is we can never allow the darkest moment in human history to be forgotten behind closed doors. We, the survivors who are present, and I know that you have acknowledged the board of directors, but I'd like to ask all of the survivors to please stand, all of them, members of the board and those who are not members of the board. For 20 years, during Yom HaShoah, we've stood here just a few feet away to remember, to acknowledge. I've been coming for 15 of those years. I want to acknowledge Jonah Goldridge, a man who I count as a friend and has been a leader in this effort. Jonah Goldridge, please give him a big hand. But we stand with the survivors, whether or not we are related to them by blood or religion. We are related as members of the human race. We stand with them, with their courage, with their persistence and determination to survive, to tell the story, to recount the atrocities, to speak out for a world that remembers so that we will never repeat those atrocities again. And yet we know that despite the fact that we have come here every year, there are still too many atrocities and examples of genocide in the world today. So the answer to the question of why is that we must remember so that we can ensure that we're doing everything possible to prevent those future atrocities, those future acts of inhumanity against man and woman. I'm honored to be here today because I believe that LA, from its very founding, has understood this notion of tolerance and understanding. And that is true, even though here in LA there have been many, many examples in our history of hate by one against the other. From the very founding of our city, 44 Mexican settlers that 26 of them could trace their heritage to Africa. They were European, they were Indian, but they had a common dream. And with every new wave of Angelenos who come here, who sometimes find this incredible diversity to be maybe uncomfortable for them at first, they come to realize that here, in this great city, here we embrace people who come from every continent. Here in this city where the world comes together, we acknowledge that our strength is our diversity. And so I am proud to be here, proud that the city is a partner in that for 50 years we will pay $1 rent. I think that the city is getting a great deal. And we're getting a great deal because we're going to be able to tell a story behind these doors. The story of triumph, the story of people that would not perish, people who would go on to found a great nation, Israel, that stands for the proposition that there will be one place in the world that will always honor the fact that the people there are Jews. And so, on behalf of the city of Los Angeles, I want to say how proud we are to be here today, to partner here today, to tell the story to all of our children, the story of hate, but the story of love as well. Thank you so much, and shalom. You know, I come to these events and I forget that I have ministerial duties to perform as well. Thank you, Barry. On behalf, and I'd like to bring up our council members who are present and our citywide elected officials. On behalf of really all of the elected officials, maybe all of us can stand here. On behalf of all of us, whether it's the city, the county, or the state, we come together on this great day to dedicate not just a museum, but the triumph of good over evil. On behalf of all of the descendants, the Holocaust victims, and the survivors, we applaud this great dedication and say, never again.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd now like to invite Eric Garcetti, City Council President and Representative of the 13th District.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your inspiring words, and thank you, everybody, for being here. Let me just start with a few other thank yous and then give a couple reflections as well. I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this, Jay, Mark, Randy, Jonah. It's an incredible trio up here of folks that have seen the vision of this, who have brought it to bear, but it's also yours as well. There are some of us who are up here, but this is really the vision of an entire city, an entire people, and hopefully of an entire world. I want to thank my cousin Rachel Roth from the Roth Family Foundation. We've been very pleased on a personal level to be involved with this from the very beginning. And I also want to single out one other person. I know everybody up here will be recognized, but back there you see a quiet man with his arms folded. Ray Cortinas, now he unfolded them so you can't find him, our superintendent of LAUSD. And part of the reason I want to single him out is, though he has announced his retirement, this is a place of great education, and we know that you will do all that you can to incorporate this for every child that is in the Los Angeles Unified School District into the ongoing education that they have of what it means to be a human being. So we thank you for being here, and we thank you for moving forward with that as well. You know, like so many of us, years ago, I took one of the most solemn trips we take in our lives to former concentration camps, and was in Auschwitz, Birkenau with 3 friends of mine. We picked probably the coldest day of the year to be there because literally in Birkenau there was nobody else there besides the 4 of us. We had the solitude, the gray skies of the moment, walking by the crematoria, going past the lakes in which our ancestors still lie. And in the museum that's in the Auschwitz part, we saw the evidence, the physical evidence, the hair, the combs, the suitcases. And we noticed them beginning to crumble and recognize that at some time, some place in the future, the physical evidence that we have that links us to our own past might one day be gone. On that day, it made me think the same thing that I think here this morning. What do we do when the physical memories are gone? How do we keep alive what we know to be amongst us right now? The survivors that are here today, the bravery that you showed, the evidence that makes sure that every person who tells a lie about what didn't happen in the Holocaust is rebutted and refuted. How do we make sure that 10 generations from now, people remember this darkest chapter in human history? This is a great Jewish city. Los Angeles, in fact, the first nonprofit in Los Angeles was a Jewish nonprofit, the Hebrew Benevolent Society, in the mid-19th century. The first head of the Chamber of Commerce was Jewish. There was a Jewish city council president long before myself or Ruth Galanter in the 19th century here in Los Angeles. I forget. Tom LaBonge will. Herman Silver. Well, Silver Lake, he's a different one, but Herman Silver from Silver Lake, also another great Jew. Tom LaBonge is coming next, preview of coming attractions. But it's a great Jewish city also that recognized that this was a place, whether like my family fleeing the pogroms in Russia, whether it was those who survived the Holocaust, whether it's a Jew arriving, which Zev Yaroslavsky so bravely fought for in the former Soviet Union on our shores, or whether somebody getting off a plane here today from Israel to be an Angelino. This is a city that recognizes and embraces that past. We know what memory is. So while we celebrate the actual survivors of the Holocaust here today, I echo what Randy said. We today are all survivors. Every human being that lives in the post-Holocaust era has that obligation to remind our fellow human beings of what is possible inside the hearts of men.